Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing well and having a good day. So in today's video, I thought it'd be really fun to sit down and answer your makeup or beauty questions. I asked you guys on Instagram a few days ago to submit your beauty questions because that is probably the #1 thing that I get from you guys in my DMs and also on comments on Instagram, comments on YouTube, are just like product recommendations or like advice for a beauty related situation. And so I thought it would be a really good video to just sit down and kind of answer a bunch of those common questions. So I have all of your questions right here. I'm going to go through as many as possible, and just a disclaimer, you guys, before I get into this is all based off of my own personal opinion. Keep in mind that everybody has different tastes when it comes to makeup. Everybody has a different skin type, skin tone, skin texture, skin concerns. And so if there's something that I recommend or a product that I recommend, just know that it's coming from, my knowledge up to this point. I feel like I can always keep learning as well. And so, my advice or my product recommendations could change over time, but this is just what I would recommend the most, or these are the things that I would say would answer the questions as best as I can right now. So just keep that in mind throughout this whole video. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off with the first question that I see, which is actually from a friend of mine. Her name is Aurora McCausland. She is on Instagram. You guys should follow her. She's amazing. And she wanted to know what the best setting powder is for really creasy under eyes. So when it comes to creasing under the eyes, I almost feel like it's not so much the powder as it is the products you put underneath. If you have really deep set lines around the eyes, which a lot of us either have or will eventually have, I feel like it's the most important to use a very small amount of product, or at least the least amount of product that you can around those areas. And then if there is a powder that I would recommend, it would be the Laura Mercier translucent setting powder. I just feel like that's a very nice overall powder, but you want to make sure that you use a very small amount. If you've used heavier powders before and it still seems to make your eyes look pretty crepey, I would go with something that has a very lightweight texture, which actually I have an example right here. This one is from By Terry. It's the Hyaluronic Hydra Powder. It is so finely milled, so lightweight, and it actually has hyaluronic acid in it, so it's going to draw moisture from the air into your skin, which will kind of help to make those areas look more plump and hydrated. Overall, to avoid that, I would say less product, but those are just a couple of powders that I would recommend in that situation. All right, so next, Kinsey Nelson said, how do I stay a glowy goddess without looking greasy? Okay, yes, there's a fine line definitely between like glowy and greasy looks. And for me personally, what I've learned is to really understand where you get oily throughout the day. So if you have oily skin all over, I feel like it's really important to kind of make sure that you're setting everything, and then you can kind of pinpoint the glow with a powder highlighter in the areas that you want that extra glowy look. For me personally, and for my skin type, I have combination skin, so in the T-zone I get very oily. In that case, I try to avoid using too hydrating products in the T-zone if I'm trying to look glowy but not greasy throughout the day. So I'll put more of the glowy products and the hydrating products on the outside of the face. That way it doesn't really matter throughout the day how glowy that looks. As long as the T-zone looks nice and set, I'm good to go. So that's just how it works for my skin tone. So just pay attention to your skin, pay attention to what areas get oily throughout the day, and make sure that you use products that kind of counteract that, and then enhance the areas that don't get as oily. And you can kind of go ham with the setting spray, with the moisturizer, with the glow products on the sides of the face, or on the areas that you don't tend to get oily. So hopefully that helps. Okay, for the next question, Kenna M. Reed said that I noticed sponges soak up my foundation and brushes add more coverage. Is that true for you? I definitely feel like that's true, and I feel like that's something that's really good to be aware of because it can kind of help you achieve the look that you're going for. For example, if you kind of feel like you're going overboard on foundation, concealer, or any other cream product, a sponge is a really, really good way to pick up the excess product. Or if you're like me and you want more coverage in some areas, I always like to go in with a brush and then a sponge. You guys may notice in the past that for me personally, I like to use both a brush and a sponge when applying foundation specifically, because there are areas where I want that full coverage, but I love the finish of a sponge. So if you're somebody like me who wants that glowy, dewy, kind of natural looking finish to your foundation, go in with a brush and kind of apply it on the areas that you need the most coverage. For me, it's on the cheeks. And then if you want to use a sponge, but you don't want to pick up the coverage, a really good trick that I learned is, I'm just trying to use this as an example, but you take your foundation brush with whatever is left on the back of your hand or just whatever's left on the brush, and you kind of apply it to the sponge, and what this will do is it will create a little bit of a barrier between the sponge and your face, and it will make sure that you don't pick up the extra coverage if that's something that you're concerned about, because this does do that, which again is a really great thing for situations where you went overboard. But if you're not looking to do that and you still want to use a sponge, that's a little trick that I learned that really helps me. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Sarah M. Dar wants to know how to keep her foundation on her nose. She's tried so many things and it always feels like it's sliding off. I totally understand that frustration. That is something that I used to struggle with a lot. I still do with certain products, but what I have figured out, and it's so crazy because you would think that you would need to layer up more and more products to make sure that things stay a long time, which is true in some situations, definitely. But when it comes to my nose, I have noticed that less is more, especially like around this area here. I have redness there, so I always used to like layer up product there to cover up the redness, and it would end up separating so quickly and looking really bad. So what I figured out is less product on the nose. You can still apply product there, but for some reason, like using really light layers of multiple products, even like if you use a primer and then a concealer or a foundation and you want to set it with powder, using smaller light layers and kind of going gradual around the areas that kind of break up a lot will actually make it last longer. It sounds crazy. It didn't make sense to me at first until I tried it, because again, a lot of times you think in order to have a full long-lasting kind of a base, you need to have a ton of different products to kind of, lock themselves in, but that's not always the case. So that's what I would say for the areas around the nose. And formula obviously does matter in this type of situation. So if you're using like a hydrating primer or foundation or anything that's a little more oil-based, it's going to slip and slide a little bit more than something else. So for those situations, I like to use something that has a lot of staying powder and has a slightly more dry formula. For example, like the Dose of Colors concealer, it has a more dry formula. It kind of has a powdery finish when it dries down, and it's also very highly pigmented. So I could buff it around those areas and it will cover everything that I need to cover, but it's going to kind of set itself. So you get that high pigment, but it's a very thin layer. So I found that those types of products last the best on my nose. But I know how frustrating that is for so many people, and it has been a frustrating situation for myself as well. Less is truly more in that case. By the way, if you guys have anything to say about these questions, if you have tips and tricks that have worked for you that you would like to add to what I'm saying, feel free to comment that down below. I feel like we can all learn from each other. That's the fun part about makeup. So if you have advice for any of these questions, feel free to answer them down below. Okay, so let's look for the next question. Okay, this is a good question. This is from Aaliyah Safe 96. I hope I'm saying that right. She wants to know what the best concealer is for dry skin that doesn't settle in under eyes and under fine lines or in fine lines. That's a really good question. For me personally, I love the Laura Mercier Flawless Fusion Concealer. It gives such good coverage, but it never ever looks drying on the skin. It lasts a really long time. I never have issues with it creasing. So for me personally, that's been a go-to of mine. An option from the drugstore that is not necessarily a dupe, but I would say can give you a similar effect is probably the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. Now, again, when it comes to those areas that crease, try to avoid too much product in those areas. I always crease right here in the smile lines. Sometimes it's just unavoidable, but I have noticed that if I'm very careful with how much product I'm putting in those areas, it really does help kind of combat the amount of creasing that happens. So when it comes to under eye concealer, if you haven't tried this, it really does help. Sometimes I feel like when you watch tutorials here on YouTube or sometimes on Instagram, or maybe if you're just like, at home applying makeup and you're not really thinking too hard about the areas that crease, it might not always be easy to remember these things, but what I like to do is sometimes I will apply the concealer lower than I normally do. I feel like a lot of people will bring concealer all the way up here. I feel like around this area is where most of us start to crease or get fine lines. And so if you take it down a little bit and you use a little fluffy brush, I've been obsessed with this one for concealer. This is the Real Techniques Deluxe Crease Brush. If you just take it and you start to buff out the majority of the product in a more smooth area, again, avoiding this area or this area too much for me personally. So I'll just kind of take the product and buff it and then take what's left on the brush and bring it up and just kind of lightly brush it underneath the eyes. But less product really is more around the eye area, you guys, but hopefully those product recommendations help. The Laura Mercier Flawless Fusion is honestly one of the most incredible for no creasing, but lasting all day, and I have never had issues with it over dry patches or on dry skin ever. Okay, so England Carly wants to know what the best drugstore sponge is. I definitely have a few favorite affordable sponges. My favorites are the Real Technique sponge. I also love the Eco Tools travel one. It was like a gray one. It has the best texture. I will have these linked down below, you guys, just to make it easier for you. And then I also love the ColourPop one. So the ColourPop one, whatever the original one is, the first one they came out with, it's like a pink one. I will have all three linked down below. Those three sponges are incredible and super affordable. Okay, Rose Rock Knits wants to know how you can keep your eyeshadow from creasing. That's also something that I feel like a lot of people have asked. This question seems to be quite a theme throughout this entire thing as I'm reading through the questions. Creasing seems to be like the #1 concern among a lot of people, which makes sense. I feel like a lot of us, you know, we all have fine lines. We're all human, we're very expressive, and it's just part of makeup. Things will crease. There are things you can do to like help prevent or slow down the creasing, but it happens to everybody, so just know that. Just know it's normal. But as far as eyeshadow goes, I have very hooded eyelids, and so certain products really help to avoid creasing for me. I have noticed that a lot of cream eyeshadow products don't always work on me. Not all of them. I can use certain ones. And if I do use a cream product, for example, like the Mercier Caviar Sticks, there's some from By Terry, there's also Nude Sticks. Those types of products, if I use them, I need to use very light layers and focus it more toward the lash line. And then I'll take a brush and kind of buff it out, and I will actually look down until it dries, because I feel like if I apply the product and I open my eyes, it automatically is starting to crease. So that's one thing that I do when I'm using a cream product. I don't use cream products too often though, because I do tend to crease just with my eye shape. It's just how it is. And in that case, I have this product right here, which you guys have heard me rave about, but I just am going to recommend it again because it is incredible. It really not only makes your eyeshadow more pigmented, but it really helps to combat creasing around the eye area, which I love, and it's just amazing. So this is the NARS Tinted Smudge Proof Eyeshadow Base. I personally use the shade Light, but they have multiple shades, which you can actually get one that matches your skin tone if you want it to look more like a concealer, or you can use it as an eyeshadow as well. If you have more of a light to medium skin tone, you can use some of the deeper shades to actually kind of create more of a shadow or like a deeper eye look, or you can also layer up deeper eyeshadows on top of the deeper colors. So you don't have to just go with one shade. If you're somebody who wants to use a creamier product or you like the look of a creamy product, you can use a deeper shade and actually use it as an eyeshadow. So I highly recommend that product. It has really changed the game for me in my eyeshadow and the way that it wears throughout the day and the way that it creases and just everything about it. So I love that. Ooh, I really like this question. So this one is from Emma Goodbread 3, and she wants to know if I have any tips on embracing natural skin texture, acne, etc. Absolutely. This is something that I have struggled with for basically, gosh, like over a decade, I would say, as far as like my acne goes. You guys know this. I've been very open about it. It's obvious, you know, as I'm doing my makeup, you guys can see the way my skin looks and the way that I've handled that throughout the years. And when it comes to embracing your natural skin texture, I just feel like it's important for all of us to remember that we are all human. I feel like it's really easy to, I don't know, like get down on ourselves if our pores don't look completely smooth, or like if, yeah, you have creases around the eyes because heaven forbid you smile a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's so important to understand that every single person is human. Skin texture is normal. And I feel like for me personally, it was important for me to start to shift my mindset and how I looked at myself. So what I mean by that, obviously you guys, my skin has improved quite a bit. I'm not like complete with my acne journey. I still get breakouts. I still get texture. But one thing that kind of carried me through the times where I had acne everywhere and texture everywhere was to focus on the things that I really loved about myself. So instead of being like, oh my gosh, like I'm having a hard time covering up this zit, or like I'm having a hard time, you know, hiding this texture, I would look at myself in the mirror and say, you know what, I really love my eyes today, or whatever. And I would use makeup to play up the areas that I really felt positive about. And I feel like doing that over time really helped me to just stop caring about the texture on my skin, which, you know, obviously I was aware of it. Obviously I was proactive about trying to get rid of it, and it's been a very, very long journey for me, so I can truly relate to anybody who is experiencing those things. But I do feel like it's so important to just embrace the fact that it's there. Our skin is never perfect, you know, it's never going to be perfect. And if you have clear skin now, you know, we are all going to age, so we're all going to experience like skin problems. And I don't even think we should call them problems. I just think we should embrace the skin we're we're in and love what we have, you know, and I feel like it's a very important thing to do. And I really wish that more people were talking about how skin texture is normal. Like, it's very, very, very normal. Everybody has pores. Everybody has, you know, fine lines and wrinkles. Everybody gets blemishes here and there. So that's just a way that I have learned to embrace that over the years. And honestly, makeup has really helped me to, I don't know if distract is the good word for it, but makeup has helped me kind of embrace everything that I have going on, you know, and I can focus on my eyes or my lips if my skin is acting out or whatever, or if I have a good skin day. I love using makeup to enhance how good my skin is. So I don't know. I hope that helps you guys. And also something that I've noticed over the years is people don't focus on the things that you are insecure about as much as you think they do, if that makes sense. So I know a lot of times, you know, you might be self-conscious about something, or if you have a breakout or like large pores and you think, oh my gosh, everyone's staring at this breakout, or everyone knows that I have large pores. They really don't, especially if you're just confident. It is just something that people overlook. And so that was important for me to understand in my journey of embracing my skin. Okay, I really loved this question from Paula Baxley. She said, what do you do when you're 62 but you want to wear makeup like you're 32? Okay, I am kind of passionate about this subject. I see so many comments, and I also have so many women in my life who express this to me. What I'm talking about is like, oh, you know, I can't wear this makeup because of my age. So, you know, someone who's older might say, oh, I can't wear shimmers on my eyes because my eyes are wrinkly, or I can't wear a bright pink lipstick. And while I understand that certain formulas may have to be changed and your routine may have to change as you age, I do not agree with the idea of limiting yourself creatively no matter what age you are. I don't know about you guys. I don't care if I have wrinkly eyelids. I will be wearing glitter on the eyes until the day I die. Like, I just love that so much, and it makes me feel pretty. So if you're somebody who, you know, has more mature skin and you want to experiment with color, there is a really wonderful way to do that, and it's finding the right products for you. So for example, if you are somebody who wants to play around with a little bit of color, find a bright cream blush and put a little bit of that on the cheeks, a little bit of that on the lips, and it will look beautiful. It really is just about understanding what your skin can handle, what looks best on you, a formula type that works best on you. And again, less is more when it comes to mature skin as well, because when we age and mature, our skin kind of loses the elasticity, which means it's more prone to fine lines and wrinkles, which is just part of life. It's something all of us need to embrace. But because of that, it is important to try to use as little product as possible to avoid products settling into those areas. But as far as color goes, and as far as like your creativity goes, I feel like age should never be a limit on that, and you should be able to wear whatever makes you feel beautiful and confident. Okay, this one is fun. JRoom33 said, what's the best lip tint for spring and summer for non-pigmented lips? So I have a few lip tints that I really love. I love the ones from Honest Beauty. They're a really great formula, and they have a range of tinted lip balms. I also really love the tinted lip products from NARS as well. So that's like a drugstore and high-end recommendation. I get so much use out of both of those, so those are the ones that I would recommend for that. I Just Want to Follow Makeup wants to know if I have tips on setting a dewy foundation with powder but still keeping it looking dewy. So there's a few things that I really love when it comes to trying to achieve that dewy look with the dewy foundation, but if you're somebody like me and you need a little powder to set the T-zone or whatever it might be, okay, I have a couple recommendations for this situation. One I've been doing more recently, and that is to leave the areas unpowdered where you want that dewy look, and then just take a smaller brush. This is what I was using today, and I just kind of press the powder into the T-zone just really lightly to kind of give that overall dewy effect everywhere else, but to mattify everything in the T-zone. A second thing that I love to do when it comes to wanting that dewy look but also wanting to set it with powder, you guys probably know this, I love to use finishing powder. So I will use a finishing powder after I've used a translucent powder. So for example, if I were to take like the Thrive Cosmetics translucent powder and set my entire face, I would go over that with a finishing powder. I love the Candlelit Glow powders from Laura Mercier, and also I'm obsessed with the Jaclyn Hill Moodlight powders. Both of those work really well to just buff over the entire skin. Also, the Hourglass Ambient powders work really well for this too. So it's like a powder that has a glowy finish to it, so you can kind of buff it over the skin after you've set it with translucent powder, and it will bring back that glow and that life back to the skin that you may have lost from setting it with powder. So those are the tips that I love to use in that situation. Okay, S Lopez 0224 says, when you're not filming, do you still apply makeup in studio lighting? Natural? What's best? This really depends on the time of day that I'm doing my makeup. If it is during the daytime and if I'm not filming, I do try to do my makeup in natural light. I just feel like that's the best way to see the color match. It's the best way to kind of know if you're applying too much makeup, but I also understand that a lot of us get ready in the morning when the sun is still down, and so in that case, just use the best lighting that you can. If it is nighttime, I do turn on the studio lights, and I also have a mirror that has a bunch of like those Hollywood bulbs around it, so I'll turn that on too. I just try to get, the best light that I can. And also when I don't have as good of a light to get ready in, my biggest concern in that situation is like whether my foundation matches or not. So I try to use a foundation that I have tested out over and over again in natural light that I know matches me really well, and products that I'm really familiar with, so that I kind of know that things are gonna look good no matter what lighting I'm in. But I would definitely say that natural light is the best lighting to get ready in, because that's what you are seen in, And I feel like it's easy to overdo it in the kind of like dim light that makes you feel really pretty. I feel like it's easy to kind of go a little heavier with the makeup in those lightings when you're getting ready. So yeah, that's what I do in that situation. Okay, this is a question that I get so much, not only online, but also, with friends and family. Roxanne Garzone said, how do I get makeup to stay where my glasses lie on the side of my nose? So if any of you guys are glasses wearers, you will know that this is a struggle for all of us. I wear contacts, so when I'm not filming, I am wearing glasses, and a lot of times I will even wear like blue light glasses over top of my contacts after applying makeup, and wherever the glasses rest, it can tend to move the makeup. This is something that I have found to be pretty unavoidable, except for when I use less product. I used to think that if I layered a lot here, that it wouldn't sink into the foundation, like if I had enough powder or whatever. But really, like, think about it. If you have layers and layers and layers of something on the skin and you have something pressed down, it's going to like make that sink down even further. So what I've noticed is to, again, use less product around those areas. If you know for sure you're going to be wearing glasses, or if you wear glasses every single day, use less product. Also, I've noticed in the past that when I use a product like the Bare Minerals Original Foundation, and I just take a tiny bit of that to kind of create that coverage that you want, because you don't want to leave it like blank if you're wearing makeup, but just by taking a little bit of powder foundation and kind of buffing it into those areas, I do not have as much like sinking in or creasing and moving around where I'm wearing glasses. And if you're somebody who wears your glasses and then takes them off throughout the day, that's a very tricky situation sometimes. But again, if you do less product and then after you take your glasses off, just kind of like press it into the skin. If you're using less product and if you haven't, set it too much, it should kind of blend itself back out again, just depending on the product that you use. It's a very tricky situation. All of us glasses wearers, we've experienced that, and it's not easy to figure out, but less is more in that situation as well. Yui Chan wants to know what the best eyelashes for hooded eyes are. So I have slightly hooded eyes, and it's really hard for me to find lashes that work well for me. I tend to go for ones that have a pretty thin lash band, because when you have less space from here to, where your eyelid creases, or if you have minimal space if your eyes are hooded, I feel like it's really important to keep the lash band thin. Otherwise, it's going to take up a lot of the real estate that you do have. So for those situations, I love to reach for lashes like the Ardell Demi Wispies. I also love the Kiss Ritzy lashes. I don't know what it is about those, but I just feel like my eyes can handle them. They don't overpower my eyes, and that's not always the case. I feel like it's very, very hard for me to find a strip lash, at least, that does not overpower my eyes. So that's what I would recommend. I will have those linked down below if you guys are somebody who want to wear strip lashes, but you've had a hard time kind of wearing them with your eye shape or whatever it might be. Another solution to that situation would be to wear individual eyelashes. I have an entire video that I posted a couple of years ago actually about how I apply individual lashes, which I will have linked down below. And in that case, it kind of allows you to make more of a custom shape depending on what your eye shape is. And also individual lashes are helpful if you find that the lash band on strip lashes is a little bit too large for your eyes, no matter which way you slice it, because that is something to note. Like when you have a strip lash, it's important to measure the length and trim off the outside end of each lash to make sure that it looks nice. But sometimes, even in those situations, certain lashes can sit wrong. So individual lashes is a really nice solution for that. But it does take practice to apply on yourself. So I'll have that video linked down below. Court9520 said, what are your tips for covering acne marks with makeup? This is something that I have learned how to do over the last decade, like I said, because I've experienced acne for a very long time. And for me personally, it's changed depending on what my skin looks like. But what I'm doing now is a little bit different than what I used to do. I used to kind of panic and I would take a full coverage foundation and just make a mask all over the face. But more recently, I have started to embrace the areas on my skin that I feel like don't have the scarring or don't have the acne. And I like to take a thinner formula of foundation and kind of put that all over the skin. And then I'll take a high coverage concealer and I will spot conceal all of those areas. And recently, you guys, I've been so into buffing it out with a brush, or you can use a sponge, obviously. But I feel like spot concealing, if you can, will help your makeup look more natural in the areas that don't have blemishes. If you're somebody who has active breakouts in a lot of places on the skin, I know it can get a little bit more difficult that way because it can be time consuming to like spot conceal a lot of blemishes. And in that case, I would recommend trying to find a formula that's very high in pigment but very thin. The one I'm thinking of right now is from Dermablend. They have these pigment drops that are very, very high pigment. So you can actually mix them into a moisturizer if you want to create a tinted moisturizer. But I like to use them by themselves sometimes when I have breakouts everywhere because the formula is so thin. It's basically just pigment. So what I found with a formula like that is it will cover everything, but it's not going to look heavy on the skin, which is something that is difficult when you're struggling with acne because you want that smooth canvas look, but it's sometimes really hard to get that if you are using the wrong formula all over the face. So I will have those products and those recommendations linked down below. Also, powder foundation on really stubborn blemishes helps a ton. Sometimes I will do my whole face and I won't like stress too much about the blemishes that are showing through even more. And then at the end, I will either take a Bare Minerals foundation or also the Makeup Forever mattifying powder foundation. You want to make sure that you get one that matches your skin tone, not any lighter, otherwise that will highlight the area. But just take a little buffing brush and buff over the more stubborn areas when your makeup is almost done, and it will help kind of add that extra coverage without, you know, getting cakey everywhere. So I love doing that as well for those more stubborn blemishes that are hard to cover. Love Maple 1 asked, what is a dupe for the Laura Mercier translucent setting powder? So the one that comes to mind is not necessarily like a formula dupe, but it reminds me a lot of the Laura Mercier one, and it's from Wet n Wild. It's the Photo Focus translucent powder, so I'll have that link down below. It's an amazing, very affordable powder from the drugstore that works really, really well. This one's fun. Mrs. Lindsay B wants to know what my favorite everyday drugstore lipstick and lip gloss is. So I definitely have a favorite that comes to mind. For lipstick, well, for lip liner and lipstick, hold on. I just used this lip liner today. How do I lose things? Here we go. Oh no, that's not it. You guys, I literally wore this lip liner today and I don't know where I put it. But it's the NYX Nude Suede Shoes lip liner. I love the Almay Good Vibes lipsticks. I will have my favorite shades listed down below, and then my favorite gloss at the drugstore is hands down this one right here. This is the Milani Keep It Full lip gloss in the shade Champagne. This formula is to die for, and this shade is amazing, so those are definitely my top lip products from the drugstore right now. Sabrina Braun wanted to know, what is the best drugstore mascara that curls lashes? Immediately I think of the NYX On the Rise Lift Scara. It's not called mascara, it's called Lift Scara, but it's in a pink bottle and it holds curl like none other. I also really love it because it can build volume up really well, but a lot of volumizing mascaras can sometimes feel pretty heavy on the eyes. This one doesn't, so I'll have that link down below for you. I would definitely recommend that if you're somebody who wants a mascara that's gonna hold curl, but you don't wanna wear waterproof, because that is a tip if you do find that your lashes fall. Waterproof mascara should help that hold a little bit better. I personally cannot stand waterproof mascara. I feel like it rips my eyes out. So the NYX Lift Scara is a really good option that's very long lasting and it holds curl really, really well. Okay, I've seen a couple questions like this. Hannah Whale 99, I hope I'm saying that right, but she asked what products helped with getting rid of acne and acne scars. So I recently uploaded my skincare routine. I will have that link down below. There are 3 videos, one talking about like the supplements that I did, the diet changes that I made to help with my acne, and then I have my morning skincare routine and my evening skincare routine, which are still very, very accurate. I use all the products that I talked about in those videos now, so I will have those listed and linked down below for you guys if you want to go more in depth about my skin journey personally. But I would say if you haven't tried using acids on the skin, that is something that really transformed my skin. And it's something that I used to think would irritate my skin more than help it, but that is not the case. So what I'm talking about are things like glycolic acid, salicylic acid, lactic acid. There are so many really good acids that do so much for your skin texture and tone and resurfacing and just kind of speeding up the process of the regenerating, skin cells that really help to kind of lighten up those scars that are stubborn. So that's one thing that I feel like once I started to do to my skin, I noticed a huge change. Also, you guys, sunscreen is so important. I didn't realize this because the sun will kind of trick you a little bit, okay? I'm sure you guys all know that things look better after you spend time in the sun. Like after you have a tan or after you're out in the sun for a long time, I feel like it creates the illusion of smoother toned skin, better texture actually, because the sun really does help with that with the vitamin D and everything. But if you are not careful and if you don't wear sunscreen, the sun actually kind of reactivates those pigments and will make them go deeper into the skin and will make them stronger, which will make it harder for you to lift them up in the future. So that is something that I have really tried to do recently because I'm working so hard to lighten up the pigment that has been there for a long time. Guys, I lived in Hawaii for 2 years. I was not the best at my sunscreen then, and I had like situations where I would accidentally get sunburnt or I would just be out in the sun for a long time. And so I have really, really deep acne scars that I feel like were made worse from my time in the sun without being too careful about sunscreen. So nowadays, since I'm working so hard and I'm spending a lot of money on like nice skincare products to help to brighten my skin, sunscreen is so important to keep those results working and to also kind of protect the pigment from going deeper and getting worse. So that's just something that I have become very passionate about. I love sunscreen because it really has helped me with my overall skin tone and texture as I've been more and more consistent with it. I have been in such a good habit of wearing sunscreen that I will put on sunscreen even if I know I'm not leaving the house. Ooh, I like this question. This is from Sentiments Paper Craft. What's a natural looking blush with a nice smooth formula that doesn't emphasize texture? I feel like that's a common concern among a lot of people, and I feel like when it comes to a blush that you don't want to emphasize texture, you're going to want to make sure that you're choosing a matte formula. Blushes with shimmer and a sheen to it are really nice for certain occasions or for certain people, but if you do have texture in this area here, you may want to stick to a more mattifying blush. Not mattifying, but like a matte finish. So I personally really love the blushes from Bare Minerals. The Gen Nude blush in the shade Beige for Days is a very, very natural, almost barely there looking blush. It has a beigey undertone and it comes off a little bit peach. It looks kind of dark in the pan, especially for my skin tone, but it works really well. And I feel like for me, it's a good color that ties in my bronzer into my skin. With the blush, like the bronzer moves into the peachy looking blush really nicely and it looks very natural. So I would recommend that. For a drugstore option, the Flower Beauty Flower Pots blushes are really nice, but you want to be careful because there are a couple that do have shimmer in it. So make sure that you're picking up the more matte shades. One that I really love is Sweet Pea. It's a little bit more of a mauve color. So if you're into those cooler tones, that's a really good option and a good formula from the drugstore. Guys, there are so many good questions and I could make probably 5 or 6 videos, if not more, answering all of your questions, but I'm going to stop it here because I don't want this video to be like 3 hours long. So I really hope that you guys found this video helpful. Again, if you guys have advice for any of the questions that were asked today, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I would love to open up a discussion. And if you have more questions about things that I didn't get a chance to answer, please feel free to leave those down below and I will try to get back to as many of you guys as I possibly can. It was so fun for me to go through these questions because I feel like so many of us have the same concerns when it comes to makeup and beauty. And so I really hope that my personal experience and my personal suggestions help you guys. Seriously, if you have any more questions, let me know. I would love to keep having this conversation and I would love to do another video like this if you guys want it because I do feel like it's fun to kind of open up that conversation and talk about things that we all want to get better at as far as like makeup goes or product recommendations that would help you with something that you need help with or whatever it might be. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're new here, hi, my name is Allie and I would love for you to join the family. You can do so by hitting the subscribe button, and if you're already a subscriber but you want to be notified on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, click on the bell after you subscribe and you'll get a notification every single time I post. That's it from me today. I hope you guys have an amazing day wherever you are. Stay safe and stay healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Love you. Bye!